Good evening, ladies and gents, and welcome to Splendid Isolation number 169. Just 1 second while I mute my stream. We have a new guest this evening for the first. Oh, there we go. That's that. As always, I'm going to start off by asking my guests if they have the first subject to bring up, and I'm going to ask you first, Mitch. Did you have a first subject you wanted to bring up this evening?
The main news that's coming from me is the Irish government actually using police to force these little villages. Like there's one village called Newton Mount Kennedy, I believe it's called. They're forcing them to have migrants that would double the village's population, because there's a small Irish village of something I don't know 500, 600 people, and the police are trying to force migrants on them against their will, and you get the National Party, I believe. You got the locals pointing at banners saying we're Ireland is full. We don't want another plantation, and so on. There's no ambiguity as to what they mean. There's no some sort of CivNat sort of amelioration of what they're saying. It's just wholeheartedly FNAT unambiguously. So I don't know how it's going to end for that little village, but suffice to say that Ireland has probably got a light at the end of the tunnel, because the problem is their deep state just seem to be completely inept at how they handle civil dissent of this scale in little villages. Little villages that survived, let's say, the loss of Cromwell, potato famines, and Irish land war, now possibly facing absolute destruction on behest of this on behest of this sort of open borders globalization policy.
Would you like me to add to that at all, Mitch?
No, you can. I'm done.
Yeah, you may carry on, Joshua, if you've got stuff to add to.
Well, it seems to me that one of the issues that, let's just call them our enemies, at least, especially on the larger scale, are running into. One of the issues is they're trying to implement something globally. And unfortunately, as we all know, every national situation is quite particular and different. And then every situation within a nation of all the localities and villages and so forth are all different too. And they seem to think they can just coerce their way through all these difficulties. Unfortunately, that I don't think is going to get them all the way over the finish line for all their aims. So you run into very, very serious resistance in a village of 500 people, as you're saying. It's well, then they're starting to set the precedent that at least resistance can happen. And then if they win, even in a small degree, it starts to give other people ideas. Well, can we fight back and get somewhere with that? And again, to come back to the problem of, it's almost like a synchronization problem, because when they attempted COVID, which was in a way their biggest global move, all at the same time, almost every nation reacted differently, and then they had to sort of particularize to each country. And I feel like that was essentially what made them pull back so hard. They, they tried to implement something huge, and in the end, they just let it fizzle away, because they're oh, damn it, look, this is such a headache to get it right in every single country, when all we want to do is one size fits all, you all obey now. And I think in regard of immigration, which is one of, shall we say, our enemy's main projects that isn't COVID, they're running into similar issues. Does that track with you guys?
Yeah, I think the Lady of Shalott said it best when she said, the Irish state just seems to be very inept at pushing civil dissent like this. You take our deep state over here. I don't know what it's like in Australia with Dan Andrews and so on, but over here, our state is very efficient at crushing dissent. Very efficient. I don't know how best to put it, but our deep state have always been very competent at questioning dissent, whether it be Enoch Powell, the National Front, BNP, etc., etc., etc. So,
I mean, what I'm seeing there also is just that difference across all the nations. So, yeah, the
I think
globalists
the
or whatever.
only
Sorry, Andrew, it's your turn. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the only weakness of the Irish position is that the population in Ireland is so small, women, so they don't have a lot of immigration to play with, if you see what I mean. If they're going to remain the majority in Ireland, which of course we all hope they will. But that is the weakness of the Irish position, is that the population there is so small.
Indeed.
I mean, you take I don't know if like either of you are familiar with Kazakhstan, but so in the time of the Soviet Union, because of Russian immigration as well as Stalin's famines, like the Kazakh population went to something like 30% ethnically of in their own homeland, and they're now 70% of the population because after the Soviet Union fell apart, a lot of like the Kazakh minority took power in their own homeland, but played their cards right, and they've just been on an upward trend ever since, with like raising birth rates, making it like giving generous grants to Russians, like making it easy for them to go back to run. So I think even if like the Irish were to become a minority, I still think like the Irish. I mean, you take a look at the history of Ireland; it's always been rugged and what's the word?
A fight for their existence, I would say.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a word that would best sum up. I know something like resilient, I suppose it would be.
There's
It's
also
in Russia.
there's a very big Irish diaspora around the world.
I'm almost a descendant of.
But there's a big Irish diaspora, particularly in the United States and Australia and what have you. There's a lot of Irish people who could easily.
Yeah, I don't think we should mention the American Irish though. I don't think we should bother mentioning the American ones. Like the Australian Irish, I mean, I've only come across one Australian of Irish heritage who's actually been intolerable. The rest of them generally seem to be all right of Australia. It's the American plastic paddies who are bloody horrendous. Like I saw one on Instagram who's like, oh no, actually it was Twitter, like this anarchist fella going like, it's great that King Charles is dying of cancer. And I go, okay, you live in Pennsylvania, you've never been to Ireland, you don't speak Irish Gaelic. But the last time this guy's ancestors were in Ireland was like during a potato famine. So, that's kind of like the average plastic paddy you've got in America. Same with that Joe Biden, who his actual his surname is Anglo-Saxon. It's not Irish at all. Like he might have some Irish blood in him, but it's like if you were to look at his family, they come from England, like Dorset, I believe, or is it somewhere in the southwest, like Dorset or Devon sort of way, like somewhere around that line. So that's generally, whereas Australian and that's in Newfoundland and where else? I don't know about New Zealand in terms of the Irish they've got there, if any, but America's the one where just don't bother mentioning the Irish diaspora there because it's just bloody awful.
I mean, I think Americans have in many ways particular trouble when it comes to understanding the case for roots that go back to homelands and all that sort of thing, because the propositional nation issue kind of rears its ugly head and so forth. So yeah, that's probably why the American Irish are a bit less amenable to our views and purposes. But yeah, any further thoughts on this Irish thing?
Yeah, it's like I mean, you have America. The problem with America is that their nation was built on a constitution, whereas you take Ireland, for example. I mean, you've got figures like Brian Boru and earlier High Kings than that. So they have like a sort of, for better phrase, like blood and soil commitment to the land. And similar to
Yes.
the English, us English, we have Hengist and Horsa. The Americans don't really have that because they're like the whole thing is built around their constitution. Now, fair enough, it did say from the outset, oh yeah, for 3 white men of good character, but it's easy to warp a constitution. It's not so easy, however, to let's say warp a sense of ethnic commitment to the land, like in a sense of one's blood and ancestry, like in England or Russia or Germany or whatever.
And the Irish have fought for their land and their existence, and they know it. So I have some hope. I have some hope for them going forward.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. I mean, I've got a soft spot for the Irish, but it's like Patrick Pearse, for example, like his old man, like his father came from Birmingham, so it's like for me, it's kind of like Irish nationalism doesn't feel so hostile in a way. Like if you go towards Patrick Pearse and that sort of Irish nationalism, it's only the Provos who've made it a dirty thing for some in our circles, because the Provos, they're essentially just Marxists who appropriated nationalism, and the rest of the story from there onward.
True. Yep, true. And as we were saying before the stream, I mean, Sinn Féin are fully in favour of Brits out, Somalians in. So, But for people who don't know Joshua here, who is a new guest on the stream and also recently joined our Discord, he has actually been a regular in the chat on some of the Franklin's streams. People who know me will know that I think that Franklin is one of the best Australian YouTubers. And Joshua, not under that name, often appears in the chat on there. And he's also been in on some streams with Yiz the Eunuch, who is another person who people in our part of the internet all know. So welcome, Joshua. And did you have a first subject you wanted to bring up?
Well, thank you for the introduction, Mr. Iron Duke. And it's been lovely to meet you just recently. I've sort of been trying to introduce myself around these parts, I guess you could say. And as for a topic, even though it might seem a little too local and a little too small, I actually kind of want to talk about what's been going on in my local community and how I've been connecting up with that. I might not literally mention the name of the community or get too self-doxy. I don't actually care much about that sort of thing. I think I'm going to be very doxed before too long, and I actually use my real name on my YouTube channel because I just don't care. Like, give you guys some idea of what I'm about. I don't care about pain. I don't care about humiliation. And I don't care about dying. I'm just not afraid of these things anymore. I've been through too much. And if I got to fight for what's right and it sucks, so be it. But anyway, locally speaking, let's just say I'm in a place not a million miles away from Mr. Iron Duke himself. And I'll leave it at that. What's been going on is there is something of I almost want to call it like an insurgency. And I say that somewhat jokingly, but sort of a counter movement to the local council that is emerging, or at least has been bubbling away for quite some time. It's an offshoot of a group that formed around the lockdowns and the protests in the let's say Victoria, the state of Victoria in Australia, and it's starting to get really interesting because the local council elections are in about 6 months, and I have in fact been talked into putting my hand up as a councillor, or at least as a wannabe councillor anyway, and try and get elected. So that might sound almost ridiculous, and there are some reasons to think it's ridiculous, but there's also some reasons to think that there's some tiny chance I could at least make a dent, and B, even if I just make not even a dent, but like 5 people mistakenly vote for me, let's say, and I'm merely a paper candidate, I can redirect the preference flows because of Australian preferential voting towards candidates that me and my allies like. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. So the lady who essentially runs what I'm going to call the local group, as in the local counter council group, is very on the ball. She's very organized. There's actually a meeting today that I'll be attending, and there was a meeting a couple of days ago that I also already attended. And I guess I'm kind of just. You could think that I'm blathering about myself a bit too much, but the real point of all this is to give some people an idea of what it's like to engage with local politics and what you need. And what you need is not necessarily lots of expertise, and you don't necessarily need lots of funding or anything like that. What you need is just some grounding in the community and a bit of a support network. And because I have that through this group, and this group might comprise something like 15 to 20 strong members and maybe an extra 20 or 30 like extended members. Okay. And then beyond that, I have the strong feeling we could grow quite quickly, especially if we get our act together. And I think we're on the verge of doing that. So there's a lot of potential to get some action happening. And like a lot of elite theory suggests, you need your counter elite and you need your organized minority. And I kind of am starting to see that we could be that organized minority. Because the council isn't very liked. The council plays lots of funny games about like avoiding accountability and misrepresenting their own popularity and all that sort of thing. They're all career politicians or wannabe career politicians associated with parties and crap like that. And Australians, I think, are kind of ready for a bit of a let's get rid of the bloody major parties. Let's ignore all the kind of hollow suits and middle class comfy types who have no real life experience. I think that message could actually take off, especially in my local area. I'm already thinking of running a pretty unorthodox campaign if I'm going to do it seriously. And I don't see why not, because it could be fun. I could learn a lot. If it crashes and burns, at least it's a write-off, and there you go, right? So I think I should give my two fellow streamers a word in edgewise. So how do you guys feel about what I've been talking about? Like, any ideas, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think I don't know if you're familiar with Homeland Party over here.
Carry on, Mitch, carry on.
Like, I don't know if you're aware of a Homeland Party over here. Like, that's their main focus, like a ladder strategy, where it's you start with like your local parish and your councils, then you move upwards, MPs and so on. I don't think you're going to get like a majority in Parliament, like ever. But I think once the boomers are no longer a relevant voting demographic, like they all die off or they get outnumbered as they start to die off, politics becomes very unpredictable, but also very interesting as well, because like the boomers still hold on to the whole right versus left political dichotomy of, oh well, we must have more taxes or less taxes, or oh well, we must have national. It's all about what it was like back in Thatcher's day of like trade unions and such. And
so what you're saying is interesting. And I tend to agree with you. I just want to make it clear, though, I'm talking about very local politics, like a handful of suburbs. This is not like the state government or anything like that. So,
yeah, but is that more like a ladder strategy where you build from councils first, and then you gradually grow up until you can able in a position to take over a state government? Because that's what the AFD are doing in Germany, where you take a few council seats or whatever, then you build up a local profile enough that you're able to actually vie for federal seats.
Some medium and large scale power if it's on the table. And I know what you're getting at, right? And I'm already thinking just a tiny bit in that direction, although I'm only one person in a much larger tapestry of people. But there is like a lot of remnants, shall we say, around Melbourne and Victoria that are basically anti-establishment. They're not necessarily right-wing. Some of them are a bit lefty. But a lot of them are basically, okay, we need to get rid of this establishment and deal with some of the serious problems. And if they can rally and unite and form all the organized minorities necessary across Victoria, and then gain the support of enough people, and like democracy in Australia could be better, but it also could be worse. Okay, the voice referendum was defeated, and other things are how to put it, like. So there was a fellow that I met at the meeting very recently who was actually a very politically experienced man who's worked on campaigns and has done work as like a voting scrutineer. And he would talk about like the situation when he was doing the scrutineer work at the election, counting ballots, And Oh, I just picked up a comment in chat. So the elites are the permanent bureaucrats in local council. They curtail and strangle nearly all energy through tedious procedure and rules. And that is exactly what these guys do. And this creates inefficiency. It creates all sorts of garbage. It creates an atmosphere of dishonesty, which I hate. I think because the political order is looking shaky across the board, I don't think these idiots locally are prepared for what we could bring in the next 6 months before the election. If anything, we can at least rattle the damn cage. And I wouldn't be happy with just that, but hell, I'm going to give it my best shot. That's where I'm at. Anyway, Iron Duke, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I can tell you that in Britain, there's quite a few people involved with my Discord, some of whom are more or less regular guests on this stream, who either have been or want to be involved in local politics. So yeah, the same sort of thing, you know. We're not going to get anywhere by trying to get immediately into national politics. But as Mitch was saying, and as you were saying, if you start from the bottom, you can start to work your way up to things. Particularly if you can avoid the major parties, which like the Liberals and the Labour Party in Australia, or the Labour Party, or the so-called Conservatives in the UK, both of whom are basically uni parties, really, for the most part.
Yeah. By the way, I have to acknowledge a couple of people in chat who are offering me good luck, Joshua. So that's Sunny Jim. Thank you very much, sir. And Aubrey, Joshua, do it, kick ass. Thank you so much. Yeah. No, unless you guys want to really dig in and ask some questions or whatever, I can leave it at that. And if there's other things people want to discuss, I'm happy to move on.
I don't mind. Mitch, did you have something else you wanted to talk about?
I mean, I don't know where
I'm certainly going to ask
topic.
you at some stage about. I was going to say later on at some point I'm going to ask you about what you think is going on with Ukraine at the moment, but because there seems to be all sorts of rumors flying around and what have you, whilst at the same time the Russians continue to do better and better comparatively. So I will ask you about that at some point.
Yeah, I don't know where I thought this topic, but I linked to an article from Breitbart back in the Discord like a few days ago, where it's all about, like my generation, millennials, and the next generation that come after me are becoming a lot more illiberal in regards to how they see power, how they see, like for example, apathy towards democracy is like pretty much non-existent amongst boomers, but after boomers and Gen Xers, it's pretty much just pretty high among my generation. So as I said, like once boomers become irrelevant politically, like once they all die off or whatever, that's really when the real fun style of politics goes. Because on one hand, sure, you got the left who are batshit crazy morons, for one of a better phrase, in terms of ones you're getting from universities these days. But then you get the right, who, you got the Homeland Party, and you get this sort of, and you get loads of nuanced factions. But generally, like the right also is going to get a lot of ideal recruitment ground in the years to come, as they want to boom die off, because, as I said, apathy for democracy is just at an all-time high among my age groups, for example.
That's an interesting topic. Do you mind if I come in on it?
Yeah, you can do. I'm done talking. So
thanks. So, like, one thing that I will say, and this is me being a little more, maybe conciliatory is the right word, in that I kind of do want to start working towards transcending the whole left-right thing. I know it's very fashionable for people in our circles to just rag on the left and think that they're worthless, but unfortunately, they represent something like half the population, and I don't think they're all just going to switch sides because we start doing well. Just like that's the case vice versa, because as the left had gained more power and started placing more pressure on us, in a way, it galvanized the right in two important ways. It made the remaining right-wingers, which might well be something like 40 to 50% of the population, like who knows, right? But a good chunk of the population. It galvanized them into becoming more serious, and consequently, a good chunk of the right now has a portion of it. There's a portion of it that's still a bit diluted and still stuck in center right, or when I say center right, I kind of mean the hollow right, the mainstream parties and that sort of stuff that's going to go nowhere and just going to continue to lose. But it's taken a lot of made a lot of the right wing sort of wake up and go, oh, so we need to like rethink our ideas. We need to like restore our vital energies. We need to try new techniques and methods of political action. And that's been very positive. This is kind of the reason that I started engaging with the right, because I have to make a confession. I used to be a filthy lefty. Like, that's going back a few years now. But the left very well might go through a similar process if we press them hard enough, where they actually lose a lot of their garbage and wake up to, I don't want to say the inherent value of the left, because that might be a bit offensive to some people here, but there are things about the left-wing personality, at the very least, that are necessary. Now, part of the reason the right lost so hard is because the right does not produce artists and creative people and visionaries nearly as much as, anyone else. And so that's a problem.
I would only say, Joshua, I would only say that even some lefties or some people who are left-wing, shall we say, economically, even quite a lot of those people are often fairly socially conservative.
There's a lot of truth to that.
You couldn't. I was on a stream with Morgoth a few weeks ago, and like Morgoth was talking about when he was a young guy, and his dad would take him to like northern working men's clubs, which were very much like labor union run and all this kind of stuff. But the dudes there tended to be very socially conservative. So if you're looking at it from that point of view, I think there is something to be said for that, for sure.
I mean, it's a complex issue, and like, let's just be honest. I mean, I don't want to ever see the left slaughter the right or the right slaughter the left. It's not a solution. I mean, the problem will just begin again in some new way. Anyway, it'll fracture like everything fractures. We actually need to start embracing. Again, I know it's a funny little buzzword of mine, but the transcendental solution, which is like, for example, to put it in somewhat more concrete.
Just to interrupt you for a minute there, Joshua, just to be clear to YouTube, this channel is not in favor of any sort of violence or any sort of criminal behavior at all. So,
of course.
So we're not in favor of slaughtering anybody on this channel.
Of course. And I was saying that out loud just to say that it was wrong, but just also to underline that some people almost want to go there, and they're nuts to think that we can go there. Like, they're completely nuts. Sorry about saying that out loud.
No, that's all right, mate. It's just I've been on YouTube a long time, and I know how you've got to be very, very on top of this stuff with YouTube, because YouTube does not support any sort of free speech at all. So you just have to be very clear that you, as a YouTube channel, we do not support any sort of violence. Totally disavow all sorts of violence.
Okay, cool. The only kind of violence that I'm engaging with is my local MMA club, which has been a great experience, actually. Do you guys know what MMA is?
Yeah, young dudes should definitely get themselves fit. There's nothing bad about that. That's a good thing to do.
Yeah, and obviously it's all above board, and it's actually like a surprisingly good club. It's like family run. It's sorry, I don't mean to go on to such a tangent, but like, if anyone does have a good martial arts or MMA club in their area, go for it, because it's one of those things that will really boost you if you engage with it well. So I went on a big thing about the left and the right and wanting to get past it. But like, in a way, the thing that I might hope for, and I don't know how much I believe in Caesarism anyway, but the concept of the red and blue Caesar, I mean, really, I think the only path is something like a purple Caesar, really. What do you guys make of that?
Well, historically speaking, the actual Julius Caesar was of course an aristocrat, but he was very much a supporter of the plebs. He did a great deal to try and help the ordinary Roman people. So yeah, from that point of view, fair enough.
Someone says professional amateur fighters are usually the nicest people, and yeah, they've been lovely. It's been a great time meeting them and punching them in the head. Again, disavow, no violence, no violence.
Them punching you in the head.
No, I've gotten a few punches in the head, and I feel
I
feel all the better for
sport violence. It's sport violence.
It's sport, yeah.
Yeah, no, sport violence is okay, but
yeah.
But no, look, I don't totally disagree with you. I'm very, very dubious about many people on the left. I must say I am.
Oh,
because unlike you two, I've never been on the left. Like even when I was a teenager, I was not on the left.
You give that impression.
I joined the British Army at 18, so
Yeah.
I joined the British Army at 18. So,
yeah.
I was just never a lefty of any description.
Yeah, no, all good, mate. And like
about as far left as I ever was very infamous fascia, to be honest with you. So.
I mean, but this is the interesting thing, though, because
which I did do because I'm an old bastard.
Even though I would not necessarily describe myself as left, right, or center right now, in many important ways, listening to the political debate for like the past 10 years has slowly drawn me into the better right-wing ideas and concepts and values. And you really can make a difference if you engage well and you stay honorable in your debates against the rabid lefties. And it just, people like me, we watch and we consider, and it takes time. But eventually we go, these right-wingers who have been like the villains to me for like half of my life or more, they've got a point. And it just grows from there.
I just won't. I won't engage with left-wing people. There's a chap, Dave, the distributist, who I like in America,
yes.
And he quite often engages in debates with lefties, and he's a friend of the Franklin, actually. They've known each other for a long time. And he engages with quite a lot of lefties in debates and so on. I just won't do it because these people are so dishonest in their debate techniques. And there is no real market of ideas out there as far as I'm concerned. I don't think there is. I do believe a bit in elite theory. I think there's some truth to that. And I think us guys on the right, we can be some sort of vanguard for sure. But you're going to get a few people who come over, but I think they're going to be mainly people like Mitch or perhaps even yourself, Joshua, who come over just because they're intelligent enough to see that many of the leftist arguments are just not true,
Well, the left hasn't, to be fair to the left has been seriously hijacked by two forces, I would say. One being the extremists and the hyper, what's a good way of putting it? The hyper divergent types who just want to splinter and fracture, and on every argument they always want to be more progressive and more to the left and more extreme. And we've all met people like that, known people like that, at least from a distance. So that's one element of it. But another element I feel, which is maybe the more dangerous element, is that because the elites want to transform society, they need to use the left side of politics in order to do that. So they have started backing the crazies in certain strategic ways, like the corporations, the governments, and others, in order to get their way. Exactly what their vision is, it's not entirely clear. You can get conspiratorial about it. You can get very realpolitik about it because, there are many interpretations of what's really going
What's
on.
Joshua? What's your view on like my opinion of a lot of this stuff? Like when they go on, when they talk about woke, for example, in air quotes, all it is, as far as I am concerned, really, is like basically anti-white and specifically anti-straight white male. I mean, whenever I see woke, that's what I look at and what I think is actually going on there. It's anti-white, and it is most specifically anti-straight white male. Because women, white women, can still just about get away with being a minority, although in what way they're a minority now, I don't really understand, but whatever. But yeah, it's that's all it is to me. It's anti-white racism, pretty much.
I mean, it's that. The one little extra thing I would add is it's anti-civilization, and of course that in many ways stems from the straight white male.
Yeah, for sure.
But look, I think this same force could wreck any other civilization once it turns on them, but it's decided to focus on straight white male civilization, and of course white civilization in general. We don't actually exclude our own women, or any women really, if we can help it. But I'm going to
get onto that in a minute. Mate. We're going to address this in a minute. In terms of the thing about women, I think we have to address that this week. But yeah, do carry on, mate.
Oh well, all I just want to say is, like I said, I agree with you. I think the anti-white concept, anti-white as a concept, it's really pointing in the right direction. I still know that there's a better word, a better conceptualization out there somewhere for what it is exactly that we're fighting. But I've been actually surprised by how well the anti-white concept has taken off, at least in our spheres, as a way of fighting back. And it's like, and of course, it's quite descriptive of the issues that we're facing. I, in a way, though, want to get a little bit past just the political and start embracing the spiritual aspect of what's going on. Because in a way, there is an emerging fight, not between political forces, but dare we even go as far as saying good and evil. And it's going to be a very complex battle, but I think in many ways it will reduce to that before it's all over. Are you willing to be blinded and go along with something, even though maybe you should be aware that you've fallen on the side of more or less evil? Are you willing to go through the hardship and embrace the truth that is difficult and fight for what's right and actually know deep down that you're on the right side, despite everything that will be thrown at you? I feel like that's the challenge of our times in many ways. And anti-white, again, good term, but in a way, making it about good and evil, as over dramatic as that might seem, brings even more people in and wakes people up even on a deeper level as to what this is really about. Anyway, I'll ramble over. Go ahead, Iron Duke. Where are we going next?
I was just going to ask Mitch what he thought about this. To be honest with you, Mitch, what's your views on what we've been talking about here?
Well, it's kind of like, you come across in other countries. You know, you've got Germany, for example, where they've got these organisations where they're buying up loads of land and trying to build up like their own separate communities, like just build up their own like farming, the villages and whatnot, so as to be self-sufficient and so on. And also in France, like you've got nationalists in Burgundy who also do the same. Like they're buying loads of farmland and just like building up these little villages themselves. And as for like, debating like leftists and whatnot, I mean, yeah, there's no point debating them. And I'm debating with centre-right idiots on Twitter right now who just doesn't understand legal immigration being a problem. But then again, it could just be an Indian, in which case, I don't know. But I just think my centaur is going to be irrelevant. I just think my centaur is going to be irrelevant in like 10 years' time or 20 years' time. I mean, you even got Charlie Kirk, who was talking to Curtis Yarvin earlier this week. So that's how far things are going.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. Look, I do think the good against evil thing certainly resonates with me when you look at the child abuse issues like LGBTQ stuff, which I think is basically child abuse as far as I'm concerned. That's a good against evil issue as far as I can think about it. You know, we don't let children drink alcohol or smoke cigarettes or drive cars, but we want to let them change their sex if you could, which of course you can't anyway. But you know, it's still enough to physically mess them up for life. You know?
And you got that cast report, which if it was, I mean, ideally we'd be plastered that bloody everywhere if we could, like just tell every single sort of normie conservative, anyone vaguely. Anyone who's any way, what's the word? Not susceptible. Who's willing to listen to our ideas at least should be aware that cast report just how many told them that. Oh yeah, but this transgender issue has to be sorted sooner or later.
Yeah,
and
I can
for non-adults, it should just go away. Like,
yes,
really, if someone's an adult and they want to do that, I don't agree with it, but okay. But no one
should be trying to
under 18
in that direction.
Should have that done to them at all under any circumstances.
Absolutely.
Should never happen. Sorry, but yeah, I feel pretty strongly about that because I reckon that is a good against evil issue, actually.
Yeah. I think the good against evil will become, unfortunately, less clear to those who have accidentally, or dare I say, deep in their hearts, made the choice to side with more or less the evil side. And I think it's going to become more and more clear to those of us who do realize it's good against evil, who have chosen the good side, just what we're in for and just what we're in. But again, it's going to be highly complex because I think more people on the left can come over. I think there are also people on the right who are not entirely above board. We all have to admit to that, I think.
For sure.
Yeah. Anyway.
No, I don't disagree with that at all. Look, there's a couple of people I was hoping were going to join us, and I don't know if they're going to. Margaret, if you want to get banned from my chat, you're going the right way to get banned, mate. All right? Because let me tell you something. I had a triple heart bypass operation a few weeks ago. So if you think I'm getting drunk at 6 o'clock in the morning, then you're a damn fool, sir. But anyway, I beg your pardon.
He has in fact confessed his sins and said
there's a couple of people I was hoping were going to join us. Fair enough.
They wouldn't be able to join us later, would they?
There's a couple of guys who I was hoping were going to join us, and one of them may still do so if he doesn't fall asleep. Because I know that at least one of them had an interesting topic to bring up. But I thought I'd do my own topic this week, and because there's been a lot about it on Twitter/X, I thought perhaps we should give some thoughts on women in the dissident right. Now, my own opinion is yes, we should have women in the dissident right. I've got 2 girls in my Discord, one of whom is in the chat at the moment, and the other one is Lady of Shalott, who's one of the last real ladies in the world. And everyone knows Lady of Shalott because she moderates for so many streams.
And
listen, I think giving women the vote was an enormous mistake. Right? I don't think we should have done it. I think it was a bad idea, but we are where we are. We should have. We need women in the dissident right. I mean, apart from anything else, a good right-wing guy should have a girlfriend and should eventually get married and have children and have a family,
Absolutely.
You can't really
don't
do
be
that
weird.
unless you've got women in the right. So
Yeah,
And
don't be
without
one of these
women, our
retarded
movement,
boykers.
sorry,
without
Mitch.
women, our movement is literally gay. I mean, do we want that?
Yes, yes, indeed, yes, indeed.
Yes.
And I don't know about you guys, but I'm not gay. Don't want to be gay. I really like women. I think they're nice.
Yeah, I'm on the same wavelength.
Olivia, yeah, trad women are like hens, Steve.
Yeah.
Garrett Olivia in the chat is saying that trad women are like hen's teeth. I agree with that, but I would just say this. You are almost never going to find a fully formed trad right-wing woman, because if you do, she's already going to be married and have kids.
Exactly.
Right? So she won't be any good to you anyway. The vast majority of women who you find, you want to look for a woman who's got a decent relationship with her dad, because if a woman who doesn't like her dad is never really a good deal for a bloke. But if she's got a decent relationship with her dad and she's not ridiculously left-wing, then most women, particularly if they admire you, will come to adopt many of your ideas and standards. And it is perfectly possible to get a basically good chick and turn her into a much more trad woman.
Yeah, one thing I'd say to that is
Carry on.
I don't know what you'd say about social media, because you generally notice if women are more addicted to social media, we generally tend to be not as. I mean, that's also another thing, is like if you can find like a woman who doesn't exactly spell like a narcissist in terms of how much she posts on social media, but that's also another plus to look out for. Because like, you know, it's like genuinely unwritten.
Sorry, Mitch.
I was just going to say, I don't know. If you come across people who post excessively on social media, like always post online generally, they're kind of like the people who high time preference. They'll be, you know, you don't want to. I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's.
What I'll actually say to build on that a bit is like, yes, I use dating apps because there aren't very good options. Otherwise, I am kind of pursuing more in-person type of options, but that's rough going in its own way. But yeah, I'm on the dating apps, and let me tell you, it's basically an instant pass if I come across some woman flogging her Instagram. It's like, oh, leave me alone. I actually made a short video about women flogging their Instagram. It's on my YouTube channel. It's probably my worst video, but it's a bit of a joke video anyway. So, should we elaborate more on the woman question?
Well, yeah, a little bit. I mean, I'm just going to say, I would just say that I've had Red Hawk on a couple of streams because he's a member of my Discord, and I like Red Hawk. He's a nice bloke. Lady Charlotte likes Red Hawk, by the way.
Oh, interesting.
And Lady Charlotte is a married lady with 3 kids, but she likes Red Hawk. She thinks he's a decent bloke. And Red Hawk pretty much says the same thing that I just said, that, well, you know, you're not going to find this fully formed, perfect trad woman, but you can find a woman who, providing she continues to like you, admire you, and look up to you, you absolutely can turn her into something like this trad woman that you're after.
Well, I don't want to say that I'm
obviously,
necessarily
no, we're not talking about women with. Well, okay. I mean, look, you speak for yourself. Okay, I'm speaking for the majority of the young blokes who speak to me, Joshua.
Of course. Sorry.
Want a more trad woman than a lot of the people. You know, I get a lot of messages from young dudes saying, "Oh, you know, you don't understand how bad dating is these days and all this kind of stuff." You understand? So yeah, from time to time, I do try and give people some advice, but I would just say this is that, you know, you're not going to find this perfect trad woman as a 18, 19 or 23-year-old girl. You're not. but you can possibly make her one.
Well, let me just say, you've got something of a point, but to actually bring a woman into this, Aubrey in the chat has said a couple of things like, we aren't all vapid liberals, and I found my conservative ideals using my own logical reasoning. I wasn't led. And that...
Yeah, I know Aubrey quite well. But Joshua, I know Aubrey quite well, by the way.
Oh, no, of course. I suppose that would be true. All I'm saying, though, is that there are genuine...
I know Aubrey pretty well.
No, okay.
But,
Okay.
yeah.
I just thought you would like being read out aloud, because she's making a fair point. And she thanked me for reading
she's
her
grateful,
out loud.
Don't worry, mate.
Yeah, I'm liking her already.
she is grateful, don't worry.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Simple Pirate, I'm sorry, I don't agree with you. Women are worth the trouble. Honestly, the world would not be worth living in without women. And if there were no women, we would soon have no world to live in anyway. So,
Exactly. Yeah, in a way.
No, carry on, Joshua, please.
Oh, thank you. So I guess when it comes to the WQ, like, I think we're all on the same page. Like, the answer is yes, we need women in the movement to some extent. I guess part of the problem is, like, how do we handle the fringe cases, right? Because people like Aubrey and Lady of Shalott are just like, they are the ideal, and they are the clear-cut cases of people we want amongst us, right? What about edge cases, though? And that's where we can get into some interesting debate. So imagine a woman who's a bit like myself and isn't necessarily being led by a man, and that's where it can get even more interesting, right? So a woman on her own trying to figure things out politically and otherwise, and in terms of values. Let's say she's kind of starting to get a little bit more sympathetic to our way of viewing things, but she's not all the way there yet. How do you think, if she came into our spaces and had a mixture of disgust and interest, how would you handle it personally?
You asking me? I don't know.
Sorry, Iron Duke. I guess Mitch has gone a little quiet. He's typing away.
Yeah.
I'm just responding.
If it was me, I would try and convince her that. If it was me, I would try and convince her that our ways were better, basically, and show her that our ways were better.
I think it's the showing that's going to do more than the telling.
It's individual cases every time,
Yes, exactly. Always an individual case, which is even more getting to the point I think we should be arriving at when it comes to the WQ, the dreaded WQ, which is we take the individual case and we do our best for them. And sometimes you have to pull out of a bad investment and say, look, this particular individual just isn't probably going to see the light. And sometimes you work for a while and you actually make breakthroughs and you keep at it. And maybe they don't even end up fully on the same page with you. But if they end up at least in the same book as you, that might well be enough. Do you see what I'm saying? Again, that's what you find.
No, absolutely. I'm just looking at Simple Pirate in the chat, who's saying, okay, if you guys want to pay 18 years of child support, be my guest, and then he talks about other stuff after that. Look, I got married, not particularly young, but I got married. I've got a grown-up son these days, and I did get divorced. I did. And I did end up paying some child support and all that sort of stuff. I'm still glad I got married. I'm still glad I got my son. Proudest day of my entire life was when I was at Britannia Royal Naval College. And my son passed out as an officer in the Royal Navy. That was the proudest day of my entire life, without any doubt whatsoever.
Beautiful. And
like
but you can't do that if you don't get married. You can't do that, guys.
Or whatever your equivalent might well be.
Yeah, so Aubrey saying chat like she arrived to this position.
It's going to be your son or your daughter.
Right.
I was just going to
like,
say,
because of logic.
if part of the pride is going to be, sorry, Mitch, if part of your pride is going to be your son or your daughter, you're not going to have one of those unless you get married, you know?
I was going to say, Aubrey saying, like, in chat. Right. I was going to say, Aubrey in chat says something about logic, and they go, okay, but that's a problem, though, isn't it? When most people aren't dominated by logic, they're dominated by more sentiment. So, for example, I don't know, you get a guy who, let's say, I don't know, he believes in, he might believe in justice. Okay, that might motivate him to get into looking up Steve Laws or Tommy Robinson, and then therefore into our circles on that basis. Or, but I don't know, like, most women generally aren't. I mean, it's a common trope, but it's like generally like most women don't get into their politics out of logic. It's only a minority who seem to do. It's like Maggie Thatcher types. It's more most women get into politics, have developed their political views either out of the man who they're with, or because of like emotional feelings. Like, for example, you see most women who are pro-Palestine because they feel something wrong about it. Like the idea of Israel glassing an entire district. So that's why women will support something like Palestine. Now, you ask your average woman who supports Palestine,
I've
what can you tell me about
met
Israel
a
versus
woman
Palestine?
whose most of her views were logical, ever. I've never, ever met a woman where most of her views were logical. Never, not once.
Well,
they're mostly based on emotions and feelings.
I feel I do need to come in and say I have known women to be reasonably serious in their convictions and their logic. I'm not saying that women are like, obviously women are quite capable of being quite emotional, especially on certain topics, especially those that touch on their personal issues or history. But in my experience, women have been capable of more logic than has been advertised to me. So I like to give them some credit. Another thing I want to say, though, is Aubrey is asking, who are these women you guys are encountering? And I guess that's also part of it. It depends on who you meet and who gets drawn into your life and all that. I mean, maybe Mr. Simple Pirate has had some really bad experiences or heard of some really bad experiences. But I've had some really bad experiences, and I'm game to go again. That's why I'm on bloody Hinge and Tinder and all that junk. And I don't think, look, I don't know what to say. If you're truly a straight white man, you're always going to have to get back into the fray sooner or later, unless you're really getting all, on in years and you, it's just not interesting anymore.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. Look, I can understand a lifelong homosexual who wants to attack women. I absolutely understand that. I don't agree with it, though, because I like girls.
Yeah,
the world would be really boring without girls, apart from anything else,
Even crazy left-wing women have something interesting about them. Even that's my weakness, I'm afraid. I find that kind of girl interesting, and that's just my cross to bear. Also, over is saying, Lady of Shalott and I need to teach a course for these young gals. Please set it up. I'll try and throw some funding your way or something. I'll refer a couple that I date, and I'll be like, hey, so it didn't work out between us, but I know exactly where you can learn to impress the next guy. Sorry. Go ahead, you guys.
It's probably not such a stupid idea, actually. But yeah.
I mean,
honestly, it's probably not such a stupid idea, actually. But
I mean, teaching
it used to be. Women used to read books written by other women that used to teach them how to be a good wife and a good mother and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, but you see what most women read up on these days. It's like Ted Bundy or they'll look up a script of like I mean, I'm going off.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, I'm going off like my experiences with women who went to the same psychology classes as me, like back in school. You take a look at what they study. It's mainly like social sciences, and they'll study about psychology, but they just want to look up like men like Ted Bundy and guys like that. I don't think I'll fully understand.
Mitch, I've got to say,
I go a long way.
I have known women who were very much into reading about serial killers and all this kind of stuff. I've known women like that.
Yeah, it's like I saw something earlier that said like women like
but
dating
it's
gangsters and
all
all that.
it's emotions and stuff with chicks, It's emotions and stuff with women. It really is. But on the other hand, that's part of why they are so attractive, because they do have these powerful emotions that rule them a lot of the time.
Yeah. It somehow goes with their beauty sometimes. Like, they can be most powerfully beautiful when they're most emotional.
For sure.
But there's a few interesting comments in chat. Do you mind if I pick up on some of them?
Go for it, mate.
Okay, so there's I think Geralt of Rivia said, "Can truly trad women be political?" And I think yes, either in support of those around her or even outright herself, honestly. It depends, again, case by case, situation by situation. But generally speaking, men should be more political than women. I think that is actually needs to be said. There's also a comment from him, looks after family and livestock. I know a few farmers' wives who fit that description. Now, really tough independent women, not in the independent from other people, but like can get lots of stuff done and could survive on their own for a bit if they had to. That kind of woman. Those can be very interesting women. And again, sort of fit the description of trad wives who could even contribute politically. There's also another nice one. I see the one you've highlighted, Iron Duke. That's lovely. That's lovely.
That's just because they're the people I detest more than anybody else, to be honest with you, Joshua. Male feminists, that they are far worse even than female feminists, in my opinion.
Now, I attempted to be one of these
female feminists, you can change their mind. You'll never change the mind of a male feminist.
No, I changed my mind pretty hard after a while. I'll admit to that. So there's more hope than you think for people to change, Iron Duke. And this is a message that I like to get out there. Like, I changed a lot.
Maybe,
like, I really
maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a difference, let's say, between me being a Stalinist like 8-9 years ago and becoming what I am now versus, let's say, I don't know, some 29-year-old male feminist who literally, I mean, you know why the male feminist goes to the feminist values. It's literally, that stone toss meme.
Yep.
Yeah, it's that stone toss meme about male feminists like being sort of like more predatory, I suppose.
And when we're talking about predatory types, like genuinely predatory types, and like I was just a sort of idealist, really. That's where whatever male feminism might have been that I had. And of course, because I'm connected more to ideals, I mean, whether that's arrogant to say or not, eventually I left it behind because the ideals became clear. They was telling me to go somewhere else. But when it comes to male feminists who are predators, this is starting to get into very different territory. And then I think I understand where you guys are coming from.
I think that's most of them, though, Joshua. I really do.
It might well be a lot of them.
Most of them get involved in it.
Yeah, I wonder how many of these male feminists
really
actually
do. I
just
think they just think
women as being like the shield maidens from Vikings. I wonder how many male feminists are literally just Coomers who think that all women are kind of like Lagertha from Vikings or whatever.
There's another good comment in here.
Which
my
of
wife
course
loves,
they're not,
but Persona non grata says, my life loves knitting and piano. Buggered if I wish to get involved with that. She leaves me to my interests, I hers. And this ties into another comment about sharing politics. And it's just like, yeah, you can do that. You really can do that. You can find other people to satisfy different aspects of your life. And that's totally fine. And it's definitely actually a good policy to have.
Joshua, again, I know women who really like knitting. I'm never going to get interested in knitting, but
no, of course
they like knitting, that's perfectly fine. Now, perfectly fine.
As a few people may have guessed by my avatar, I actually am into piano. But I'm into piano in the spirit of the ancient masculine tradition that it truly is.
Well, Chopin sort of thing, yeah.
Yeah, Chopin is a
Well,
great
I mean,
example.
also you've got to be musical, you know.
Well, yes.
Yeah, and you've got to be musical, and I'm just not musical, you know. So I like listening to it, but I would
Couldn't engage
never
with it
attempt
as
to
a
play
hobby.
it because I know I'd be crap at it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
But specifically, his comment about you don't have to share politics with a partner. I mean, part of the problem there, however, is that women have been so encouraged to judge men on their politics. Like, it's massively encouraged to be like, give no sex to the enemy. Like, basically, that's where they're at, a lot of them. So, yeah,
I think
it's a tricky one.
I think it's pretty well proven, Joshua. I think it's been pretty well proven that married women are a lot more right wing than single women.
Yes,
I think
I
that's
believe
been
that is
pretty,
one.
and obviously married guys are a lot more right wing than single women.
Indeed.
And married men are also more right wing than single men are, but not as much because men are generally more right wing than women are. But I think it's been proven that married women are far more right wing politically than single women are.
And just to humor the chat, one more extra.
Sunny Jim
Yeah,
in
that's
the
a good
chat
one.
says, my mum used to knit all the time, much to my chagrin when I had to wear some of the stuff.
Oh, well. Hey, it's her way of showing she loves you, right?
To be fair, some women knit really well. Some women knit really well, it has to be said.
Indeed.
And if they like that, that's cool. I mean, I got nothing against women following their own hobbies. I mean, go for it, you know.
And there's one funny comment I just have to pick up on, which is Mitch, who says, I was expecting Josh to say that of goth girls, to be honest, like I would say. They're my weakness. Yeah, like I can get behind goth girls too, literally and figuratively. Sorry.
I think Mitch has said something like that before now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I said words to the effect of, oh, yeah, if I'm going to encourage guys in this sphere to go for women, I said like more alternative girls, like goth girls or whatever. Like, because I was saying that because of a Croatian guy I follow on Twitter who also says the same, like, oh, yeah, women who are alternative, provided, you know, apolitical or apathetic towards politics, they can generally be molded that way. They've already got the alternative instinct in them. So
one of the paradoxes may well be that particularly weird and rebellious women in some ways might be drawn to something like the dissident right. I had an experience like this in a way with a girl who might have been a little bit of a, how do I put this delicately, a little bit of a fan of a certain mid-century character, and she just dropped a few hints about this. Let's put it that way. And you would think that maybe she was a bit of a lefty. She had some of the visual hallmarks. Let's put it that way. However, deep down, she was too rebellious to go along with the boring left-wing consensus that a lot of women go along with, and she must have gotten interested in some other ideas. And yeah, but unfortunately, this girl had a BPD, so it was a hell of a ride while it lasted, and then it blew up. Yeah,
I've been there and done that, mate. You got to be very, very careful with girls like that. But yeah,
oh, you do,
very careful.
But they're so enticing to a fool like
I would
me.
just say, look, the thing I think Mitch is right about in terms of goth girls is at least they tend to be fairly feminine. You know, you get some women, modern women. Yeah, who don't like even wearing a dress or a skirt or anything like that, which is not true, I don't think, of goth girls. Not that I know anything about goth girls, you know. Like I'm way too old to have anything to do with goth girls, for God's sake.
Oh, you missed out.
But oh, possibly. I look. I have my own weaknesses. I was always into like cute blonde girls and you know, this kind of stuff. and on most occasions it did not pay off. I have to say, if you go out with girls who are slutty, they tend to be slutty. It's got to be said, but I learned my lesson gradually and slowly.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I guess oh look, I'm going to pick up on another Mitch comment because this is a good one. There's a common Zoomer meme that girls are either bipolar or bisexual, and as soon as I read that, I knew what the next sentence would be. I now know that meme to be wrong because those two things damn well overlap.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
It's quite true. That's quite true.
I mean, I'd go so far as to say 60% of women are potentially bisexual anyway. But
yeah, and that could lead.
That
to some
has
times,
been my
especially
experience over many years. Many years. I would say about 60% of women can there's two guys kissing gives me a disgust response.
Oh,
right?
I know.
Even if it's in a film, it gives me an absolute disgust response. Most girls do not have that for two girls kissing at all. Not even slightly.
No.
A few do, but not many.
Yeah. Like it's clear the things clearly function very differently, which is part of why equality in the strict sense is such nonsense. I mean, I there's a concept I like to introduce to people.
We don't think it's all the same.
No, there's a concept I'd like to introduce, which is that our mission should not be one of gender equality. Obviously, it's not what we want. Gender regressiveness, shall we say, which is gender trying to shove everything back in the box and let's all return to tradition with a V. I don't think that's going to work, and I don't even think it's right. What I want to get people thinking about is what would gender harmony?
I do in the military, man. I've got to say, I do in the military. It's got to go back in the box.
Okay, that makes sense because that's the bloody military. I get that. But for broader society, though, I think some Pandora's boxes can't be stuffed back and closed, if you know what I mean. But yeah, gender harmony is a concept that I sort of have gotten interested in. And I don't know, maybe someone else has talked about it, but I've not seen it come up. And it's a very simple idea that, well, each person is different. Each gender is different. Why can't we learn to sort of build our society and our lives in harmony with each other rather than trying to enforce equality, which is never going to work, or try and be something that we're not, essentially. In a way, we, men and women, want to, oh God, and I have to answer another comment, but men and women want to fully express themselves as who they are, and they do that best in concert, hence the idea of harmony, to my mind anyway. But Orsbury said, Joshua, I may vote for you for president one day.
Yeah, I know. I saw that.
I feel flattered. Thank you so much.
I may have to have words with Aubrey after.
Giving the new guest a big head, huh? Yeah. Okay. I feel like I've spoken enough.
So I may have to have words with Miss Aubrey later on. But I do see what you're saying. I think there's a lot of truth in that. Again, I think some of what you say is the sort of stuff that Red Hawk will point out. And Red Hawk is a quite sensible man. And he's in my Discord. You can't suddenly change all these modern women into some trad 1890s goal. You're just not going to be able to do it, guys. And he's right about that. Yeah. And particularly while you've got the contraceptive pill and abortion on demand, and a woman can get a man chucked out of his own house just by complaining to the police, and the bloke will almost never get custody of his own children, etc. None of that's going to change. And so get real. You've got to get real.
Indeed. Yeah. Other thoughts on the WQ, I guess? Who's got one? Mitch?
Sorry.
Any thoughts on the WQ?
I think there are some good women on the right.
Oh, definitely. And I think they get a lot of flack from angry men who need to learn better, you know?
Yeah,
As I say, on a
the
gender
thing is,
equality
it's
question,
the
I mean,
ones
you
who
got
don't
Boeing who are
deserve it
finding
that
it
get
out
flack.
the hard way.
Yeah, Mitch, hang on a sec, mate. I really would like to hear what you think about this, but before you do, I would just like to say the women on the right who get shit, like let's say Lady Schlott, 100% ridiculous. She's a mother of three and one of the last ladies in the world, you know. Philosophy Cat is another pretty reasonable woman as far as I know. She doesn't have an OnlyFans or any nonsense like that, you know. There are some good women on the right who get a lot of crap. Daughter of Albion, as far as I know, hasn't done anything particularly wrong that I know about. Even Aubrey, who is like, you know, has her moments. She's a pretty good girl. I would just say that she is. She actually is a pretty good girl, to be honest. But and she's got like one of the greatest dogs in the whole history of dogdom. But anyway, that's a different story. But
she just commented, even Aubrey.
I just said, Aubrey, you have one of the greatest dogs. I just said you have one of the greatest dogs in the whole history of dogdom, and she does. But anyway, and often looks after many other dogs as well. But anyway, yeah, I just think they're picking the wrong targets. Lauren Southern, I'm not a big fan of. You know, Lauren Southern went down to Australia, got picked up by some Fed type bloke, had a kid with him, and then let the Australian government blackmail her, you know. But I don't think that was a very good move. But then you look at somebody like Brittany Pettibone, who married Martin Sellner, who apparently Lauren Southern got loads of crap about because she was friends with her. Brittany Pettibone, I think, walked the walk. She married Martin Sellner, you know. I mean, so I've got no problem with that woman.
Well, I mean,
and she's a good.
We don't hear much from her of these days.
Relatively. No, but when we do, it's about her husband, which is fine.
Yeah, that's the thing. What about that? That's me supporting your point. She's a pretty good girl. Yeah, that's me supporting your point, Mark, because she's
a pretty good girl.
Yeah, because she's largely focusing on her family. So that's my point. Is that I'm agreeing with you. Like, I think Brittany Sellner now, like, she's largely put her money where her mouth is as far as a pro-family.
As I said, I'm not a huge Lauren Southern fan. Yeah, I'm not a huge Lauren Southern fan. But
I just don't know her well enough to make a judgment.
Alabaster in the chat. Now, I didn't know this. All right, this is amusing. Alabaster in the chat is saying that Philosophicat is teasing Semiagog, and she knows what she's doing. Yeah, she probably does. And you know what? I like Semiagog, and I think he's a nice dude. But I don't think it's wise for her to tease him. You know, I don't think Semi's going to put up with that. That's fine. I mean, that's probably kind of like semi-flirting stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. That's all right.
I rather like Mitch saying, my diaphragm's going to be fucked by the end of the stream, judging by the amount of comedic moments tonight. Well, glad to be entertaining, mate. And I think Vex Pro doesn't know what diaphragm means.
We got 30. Yeah. Someone doesn't know what a diaphragm is. It's a female contraceptive device, which is not that common these days, but they used to use it.
No, in this context.
Oh, someone means lungs.
Anatomy.
Oh, so like, a diaphragm
of the lungs
was actually a name for a female contraceptive device too. It was.
Yeah, it was. You are correct. But I believe the context was my diary was going to be fucked by the end of the stream, which
I lost it there.
But I'm pretty sure he meant the element of breath. So just
I just
a lot of car crashes there. Oh, Mitch is having a good time. That's great.
No, I can be.
It's fun interacting with chat,
guys. Don't worry.
You know, on my last stream, I had the first people show up in live chat that I've had ever. So that was great. We were doing a music video game stream. Sorry, not music video, music from video games stream with a Kizza, actually, who I believe some people know around these parts. And that was yeah, we had a great time. That
doesn't sound good, man. I gotta say.
You don't like video game music, huh?
All right. I don't play enough. I don't play enough video games to know much about their music. But all
right. That's all right. That's all right. We had a good time though. And if you don't like video game music, I actually made a different stream entirely about classical music. That's really my favorite kind of music.
Well, that'd be more interesting. That'd be more interesting. We've got a couple of musical guys on our Discord. Particularly one bloke who I suggest everyone goes and follows, called Mitch. What's his name? He's gone out of my head for the
minute. Which guy are you talking about?
I can't remember. Patriotic Archive. Patriotic Archive. Yeah, he's got a great musical channel on YouTube. Really good. Really, really good. And I used to play quite a lot of his music until my computer broke and I ended up with this pile of crap I'm using at the moment. And so I just abandoned trying to play music until I can get a new computer, which eventually I will.
So what's his name again? I'll look him up.
And I'm pleased to say he is supporting me. Women still use diaphragms as birth control. There you go.
There you go. Patriotic Archive, a channel dedicated to archiving British historical music. That's good.
Yeah, it's not only British. He's got lots of old Commonwealth stuff, or even some German stuff and what have you on there as well.
Yeah, like his two most popular videos, like a Russian and a Serbian song. So
no, we're talking about real nationalists, I guess.
Well, I don't know about that. I'd like to think I'm a real nationalist.
No, you are most definitely. But Serbs and Russians get into it very unapologetically, en masse. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, let's just say a Serbian turbo folk.
Oh yeah, they don't care. They're quite old-fashioned. Yeah.
You know, if I recall correctly, there's like an interesting few incidents. I think the Franklin actually comes in of like the Eastern Europeans getting particularly nationalistic at like soccer matches and stuff, and modern Australia just didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah, but as well, football hooliganism like, used to be like 50 years
Which
ago.
Is weird because modern Australians are fairly nationalistic at sport anyway.
At sport, yes, but like
sport, yeah, at sporting events, yeah.
But it was the mix of delightful racism and sport and a little bit of stuff that might have tied into a few events around the breakup of nations and some not very good happenings. Like, it's just one of those things that, again, modern politically correct Australia has a little bit of trouble handling. But it's interesting you think most Australians are a bit nationalistic, because in some ways I don't get that vibe so strongly. What makes you say that?
I think it depends. I think, and this is a bit similar to Britain. I think it depends on working class they are. I think working class Australians are still, they're still pretty nationalistic, and I think that's also true in Britain. And I come from a very working class background, so like I was born in inner southeast London, like 5 minutes walk from Tower Bridge, for God's sake. And to let you understand, I went there when my son passed out of Britannia Royal Naval College at Dartmouth, I foolishly went back there to go and have a look at it. And there were no white people there at all, apart from a few middle class guys right on the Thames in very, very expensive flats that used to be working warehouses and stuff, But there were apart from that, there were no white men there, no white men or women there at all. It was like I was an alien in my own country. But yeah, if you meet basic Brits, fairly working class guys, very much like working class Australians, they tend to be pretty nationalistic in my experience.
Okay,
I
think you have a point.
Stream a couple of days ago with. I did a stream a couple of days ago with Tim Wilms, who's a middle class Australian dude, and Furious Pertinax, who's also a middle class Australian dude, although Furious is much more from a rural farming background. And yeah, we talked about this stuff for a couple of hours, and I think there's still quite a lot of nationalism in Australia, but it's not in the middle of cities like Melbourne or Sydney or or Brisbane even these days. It tends to be much more in the suburbs, and it tends to be pretty working class for the most part. And I come from a working class background, so I don't despise those guys at all. I like them.
So yeah, no, I tend to get along fairly well with the working class types. I mean, there's plenty around here. Even sorry. I mean, I got actually some good money from one dude who seemed pretty working class to me, who when I was busking the other day, I was actually singing opera, but he was like, "You sound grouse, mate. Is $4." I was like, "Thank you so much," and I went back to singing.
Well, that was all right. Yeah, that was all right. My deal was I only gave people money if they had a dog. If they had a dog with them, they got money. If they didn't, no.
I'm getting the sense that you're a real big dog person.
I love dogs. I like all dogs and a fair number of humans.
Yeah. I said something really.
One reason
cheeky.
I get on all right with Aubrey is we agree about dogs.
Okay. I said something really
I get
cheeky.
on all right with Aubrey because she and her agree about dogs. So,
so I got to tell you a funny little thing. All it was a little message that I sent, and obviously I got no reply. But there was a woman on a dating app, and I was looking at her profile, and she said something like, "My dog is probably more likely to like you than I am." And I wasn't particularly interested in this girl, so I just thought, I think I can get away with this one without getting reported. And I just wrote to her, "That's because dogs are nicer than women." And
well, yeah.
So,
but I mean,
it's a fact.
Any woman that does, any woman or man for this matter, who does not trust his or her dog's judgment on humans is very foolish.
Well,
dogs absolutely will always have a good judgment on humans. If I had a little dog who died last year at 16, little cross-check Russell, and Rudy, if he didn't trust somebody, I never did, and he was never proven wrong ever. Like if he didn't like someone, they were just generally a bad person.
I have to admit, I have a somewhat interesting effect on dogs. I wouldn't say that it's entirely negative. No. And often when it is negative, it's from a dog that's like, it's the kind of dog that barks at everyone who walks past or that sort of thing, right? There was an incident not that long ago though, where I was walking around at night and there was like a stray pit bull, and there was a moment of tension. And I think I did something where I did not exactly shy away, nor did I make it confrontational. I just stood up a little straighter and sort of walked around the dog. And it seemed to be the right way to handle it because I did not end up getting attacked or even causing any growling or anything. In fact, the dog sort of slinked off from how I handled it. But Yeah, I feel a bit nervous around dogs sometimes, particularly breeds like pit bulls. To be honest, but I do appreciate a lovely.
Very few. I have met very, very few bad dogs. I've met a lot of bad humans. I gotta say.
Fair enough. I have to also confess that
dogs.
I'm a bit of a cat person myself, but I held nothing against you dog lovers.
Ah,
I just don't.
This is not good, mate.
Oh yeah, I figured you wouldn't like that comment. But one of the main reasons I've never had enough experience with dogs is simply I don't have the time or wherewithal to just look after a dog all the time. And like I'm always making music, and the dog will always be like, "Hey, play with me."
They spend half their
the
time
piano for
looking
4 hours.
after you.
Yeah.
Joshua,
Okay.
you do realize that dogs spend half their time playing with you.
Okay.
They really do. They spend half their time playing with you. They're looking after you more time than you spend looking after them. This is the truth about dogs.
If I had a bustling
and no
household,
lie, you do.
Like in 5 or 10 years, if I had like a proper household with a family, and I had like a kid and a wife to also look after the dog and keep it happy, I could really consider getting one. But right for now, I just shouldn't, because I wouldn't be able to look after it properly or give it the stability.
See, this is where you're wrong, mate. You see, my deal was when I was married, right? When I got married, we had 2 dogs anyway, right? As soon as I got married, we had 2 dogs. And eventually we had 3 dogs. And my deal would be, if I was a young dude and I was going to get married, I'd get a dog to look after my wife and my child, because they will. They absolutely will. And cats, however nice they may be, and I would never ever be cruel or nasty to a cat. Wouldn't dream of it. But however nice they may be, they will not protect your wife or your child, but a dog will. A dog always will. Almost always will. So long as the dog knows that he's loved and
these are our
part
people.
of the family, your dog will bloody well die trying to save your wife or your kid, which no other animal will do, and hardly any humans either.
Okay. Advice taken on board, and like I said, if it becomes feasible, I'll really consider getting a dog. It's already something I've thought about.
You should, man. You should, and get a young rescue dog, because there's always poor doggos who are desperate for a home because some bastard got them and then just abandoned them. Sadly.
I must admit that I'm particularly attracted though to some of those popular dog types like golden retrievers, good-natured big dogs.
Oh, I know somebody who loves golden retrievers, man.
Anyway, I think there was a topic you had in mind.
Although strange to say, she doesn't have one herself, but yeah.
Because didn't you say you wanted to cover Ukraine with Mitch? I feel like Mitch has barely got a word in. I'm sorry, Mitch.
Yeah, no, that's gonna be our final deal this evening, I think. Mitch.
Okay, no problem.
There's been all sorts of rumors flying around in places that you and I both watch about the Russians are going to attack from the borders to the north of Ukraine, which I really hope, because I think Ukraine will be fucked if they do. And also, the Americans and the Brits have been bigging up how much money we've wasted on them. Even though the war's obviously lost. And at the same time, we've seen convoys of Ukrainians in Humvees, which are definitely going to stand up to nothing whatsoever, going to these same borders. I mean, what do you think's happening there, Mitch?
Well,
given you speak Russian, I mean, what do you think's going on?
Well, I mean, the thing is, you got on one hand the Abrams tanks that the Ukrainians were using. They've had to pull them back because the Americans put pressure on Ukraine to stop fielding them because of the humiliation of these cheap Russian drones taking out these Abrams tanks. I suppose you had that aid bill being passed for Ukraine in the House of Representatives and Senate. I mean, that'll forestall it by, like, I don't know, let's say another 6 months, for argument's sake, but we all know the way the war's going to go ahead. There's been a breakthrough northwest of Avdiivka where you get these little towns like Ochalitina and Novomikhailivka and so on, where because after Avdiivka fell, the Ukrainians were very lost because they weren't expecting that city to fall so suddenly like it did a few months ago. So the Ukrainians are in a position where they had to hastily fortify these little towns like Ochalitina, which the Russians have just broken through, and it looks like the Ukrainians on the run in that sector. There was one Ukrainian unit. Yeah, Barbara, was it? Yeah, the 47th Mechanized Brigade, where they were meant to be rotated out because they spent like 11 months on the front line, northwest of Avdiivka. Then what happened was, as they were leaving the front and getting ready to spend time with their wives and children, they then get told, the replacements we sent in your place, and they've all run away. Like, they've all just routed in the face of a Russian armored assault. So we're going to have to ask you to come back. So that's one thing to be noticed, the fact that even when the Ukrainians try to rotate some of their weary units, the replacements they send just end up running like in the sheer face of the Russian onslaught, the artillery and so on, the drones. And and now the Russians have got a breakthrough, which I don't know how far you could deepen their thrust and so on, but given it was the northwest of Avdiivka, yeah, it's not looking good for Ukrainians. As for this rumored push into Kharkov Oblast, I mean, I don't know when it's going to happen. Everyone says a reserve force there, like Lukashenko, a lot of the Russian military higher-ups, a lot of Russian military commentators all say, yeah, there's a massive reserve force being built up in that area. So I don't know when for certain this onslaught is going to happen from the northeast into Kharkov Oblast. But chances are it will happen at some point after a sudden breakthrough gets achieved or whatever, or until Ukrainians get so badly attrited away that they just can't have a coherent resistance against it long term, to say the least.
Makes sense to me, mate. It absolutely makes sense to me. I don't know. I mean, I just think all that money apparently most of that American money is going to get spent on the American industrial military complex. It's actually not going to go to Ukraine at all. But the British Defense Secretary is now talking about a new axis, which for anyone who's a complete moron, when he says the axis, he presumably means the axis from World War II, when you were talking about Germany and Italy and Japan. And the idea that Russia is that is just pathetic, quite frankly. But, I mean, it's a great way of wasting the very limited British military resources and vast amounts of British taxpayers' money. But I mean, the so-called Conservative government in Britain is entirely happy to do that because they're a poodle of the Americans that is such a poodle that they would probably stand under the US government's rectum to actually swallow their shit, in my opinion, at the moment.
Why did I know?
I really think they would, to be honest, at the moment.
No, they're pretty pathetic.
To be honest.
Sunak is.
And don't get me wrong, I'm the proudest Brit you'll ever meet. I'm talking about Sunak's who is an Indian banker, and his government, which has got really nothing whatever to do with the British people, who mostly detest him, you know. So, you know, I'm not insulting the British people when I say
No,
that.
of course.
I'm just
And
insulting Indian banker Rishi Sunak and his so-called conservative government.
And I'm really quite happy also knowing how pathetic the Australian
I think they'd stick underneath the American rectum and swallow their shit.
So Aubrey is thanking you for the
really
visual
think
as well.
they would.
I think we get the message.
No, honestly, just
No,
imagine
you're right.
senile Biden bending over and Sunak underneath him. You know.
Okay. Old man and Indian. Let's move on. Let's move on. But thank you, and I agree with you. The government is not the people. It never has been. It never should be. The closest you get to that is maybe something with a truly embedded and good aristocracy or a monarchy. But that's the exception, even in those cases. Audrey is a little annoyed with you, I think. Or should I say Aubrey? But
the last good British government, was the one that ran the policy this stream is named after, Splendid Isolation.
Is that
that was Lord Salisbury? That was Lord Salisbury in the very late 19th century.
I see. Was it a retreat? Not a retreat.
That was the last good British government.
So that was that a government less concerned with building
retreat?
Or?
No, not at all. The reason it was called Splendid Isolation, no, Joshua. The reason it was called Splendid Isolation was Salisbury's, as a conservative solution, and a real conservative. His solution to this was he kept the Royal Navy considerably larger than the next two navies combined.
Yeah, which is the
right. And in that way, Britain didn't need any allies. We didn't need any allies. We were an offshore island.
See.
Right?
I see.
We were an offshore island. You couldn't invade Britain except by sea. And the British Royal Navy was more than twice as big as the next two navies combined. That's why it was called Splendid Isolation.
Isolated at the height.
And it was a very, very good policy. It was a good policy. It was a really good policy. And the only ally we took, I think it was in 1902, was Britain became allies with Japan. Britain built most of the Japanese warships back then. And that just enabled Britain not to have so many battleships in the Far East, because Japan was our ally, and it was the only good alliance Britain ever got into, really.
So I should just mention on the whole Ukraine war thing, I almost drifted off, partly because I'm a little tired, but also because I have had almost zero opinions on the whole Ukraine war, and not even very much interest, because it just seems like what it looks like on the front of it, and getting into all the military detail. Interesting though it might be for some, it's just like, okay, so this is going to be Russia winning, a giant money sink, and a lot of corruption and bullshit. And that's kind of what it's been the whole time. So I didn't feel the need to dig too deep into it.
But it will be a lot less corruption under Russia than it will be under Ukraine, which was
quite a statement.
More corrupt than Russia ever was. But
yeah, you may well be right.
It's true though, mate. Honestly,
yeah.
I mean, and not only that, Ukraine was also the center of the whole wide world, pretty much, for the sex slave trade, and Ukraine was also very much a center for babies for adoption. So, like, if you were a gay couple in California, like some people who would claim to be on the right, that you would know on YouTube, and you wanted to get a couple of babies stolen from their family, you'd go to Ukraine together. basically.
I find it astonishing the way that they've tried to portray Ukraine as this like noble victim state, just fighting for its own national independence. It's like, I mean, seriously,
Yeah.
media, is that your angle?
Well, I mean, don't even look at Azov units or anything like that, mate. Because if you do, you know how our lefty people like to go on about Nazis and you're really a Nazi and all the rest of it. Well, if you want to see
no
some
word.
real
Disavow.
Nazis, yeah, go and look at Azov and quite a lot of other Ukrainian national units. But it's funny because at the same time, of course, they're infiltrating Ukraine constantly with the rainbow flag and even mass forward immigration, with lots of black people and all this kind of stuff. So you've got the two things at once, but the lefties, including, anyone who is maybe supporting Biden or whoever is really running the senile old bastard.
Yeah, exactly.
Those people don't care, they're all right with that. These guys will actually be covered with swastika tattoos and all the rest of it. And you know what? I sometimes get accused of being that because I'm on the right, but I'm not really, and I never had been. I didn't really like Adolf Hitler, but I didn't like Joseph Stalin either. And I didn't like Winston Churchill, and I didn't like FDR. But I mean, there you go. That's my view.
That's actually an interesting question, persona non grata.
I think
raises.
persona non grata is asking in the chat what Trump might do about the Ukraine war. I think if Trump were to win, he's got some chances he might make some sort of deal because Trump's into making deals. So maybe he might, which would be good for Ukrainians before they all get killed under the massed Russian artillery.
I really believe in not getting one's hopes up when it comes to Trump. Partly just because he's getting so old. I think he'll be dead of old age in not too long.
Yeah, honestly. But not compared to Biden, though.
Which is kind of amazing, but yeah, I agree with you there as well. I'm astonished Biden has made it this far. But
I mean, compared to Biden, he's sprightly and young,
I mean, compared to Biden, but still,
I don't know. Look, I thought Trump was disappointing last time. Will he be better this time? Who can tell? Let's see.
Who can tell? Although I just do want to mention that the right seriously needs to start creating new leadership that it wants to back, because putting all the eggs in the Trump basket was not wise. For all I know, that the Americans are working hard on building a secondary level of leadership. But I don't know if it's because there's a problem, though, because even if they are smart enough to start backing younger and more dynamic leadership, because it's all under the banner and umbrella of Trump. Yeah, the wall makes sense.
Joshua,
in many ways.
You must believe in building the wall, surely. You've got to control the immigration into your country. Man.
I mean, fundamentally, yes. I agree with that. You must be in control of your migration.
If you don't, your country will not be your country for long at all.
Yeah, it's almost part of the fundamental definition of being a nation. You have an area of land and a people on it. You don't control those things.
You have to control your borders.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why Britain is such a joke these days, partly. But
I mean, this is all deliberate on the part of traitorous leaders. I mean, I think we said before we went live, but it is worth saying again. Almost universally, the leadership across the board is traitorous, around the world.
I'd say there was plenty of that. Yeah, 100% plenty of that.
I mean, there might
all
be
right, guys,
exceptions.
we're coming to the end of this. I don't disagree, but we are coming to the end of this. Mitch, anything you want to show, mate?
No, not for me.
All right. Joshua, anything you want to shill?
Oh, if anyone would like to check out my YouTube channel, which is mostly focused on music, but has a few other threads running through it, like poetry and a little bit of political talk, you can check me out. It's simply my name, Joshua Soderlund. Would you like me to provide you a link, Iron Duke?
Stick it in the chat, mate, and I will. In due course, it will go underneath the stream.
Perfect. It might take me a couple moments to grab it because yeah.
That's all right. We're not in a rush.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, just stick it in. Just stick it in the chat, man.
Okay. You know what I'll do? I'll link to I'll link to one of my better examples of what I've got. So I'll link to Bach Fugue that I played, which has turned out reasonably well. So I need to join the chat.
Do
you mind if I just send you this to Discord?
You can do that, but put it in the chat, mate, and then people can check it out.
I haven't connected.
So you can send it on Discord, and I will put it under the stream. Yeah.
That'll do. Because I can't actually speak in the main public chat because I just haven't joined my accounts properly, and it'll take me a while to do that.
Oh, okay. No worries.
Yeah, that's
I'll stick it in. I'll stick it under the stream later, James. Don't worry.
Very much appreciated. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Not a problem.
No worries. Thanks for joining us. We didn't have one or two people this week I was hoping to get, but we didn't get them. So there we go. And we'll check you out next week, I guess. Don't let the bastards grind you down, guys, because we have not yet lost. Go on.
Absolutely.